What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Okay, so there is no Piers Morgan debate today because there wasn't any Piers Morgan debates to go over, so we're going to cover something a little bit different. It is Piers Morgan, however, but Piers Morgan had an interview with Bill Maher. I guess they interviewed each other in some sort of crossover situation, and so the setting is Club Random. And they go over several different topics. It's a quite interesting conversation, right? Bill Maher is a very fascinating person, and we're going to get into that. But before we do, I need y'all to do me a favor. Smash that like button. You know I gotta say it. I got to remind you guys to do that because, you know, for reasons or whatever. But smash that like button for me. It would greatly help me out if you guys could do that. Also, if you like staying up to date with what is going on in the world of politics, if you like to know how you're being manipulated by the corporate press, subscribe to this channel because that is what we do for the most part. We cover news, we read the news, figure out how we're being manipulated, we gather the truth from that. So yeah, we like to stay up to date with these things. We like to know what's going on in politics because those are the people that make the rules that we have to live by. So yeah, we kind of know what's going on in the world of politics. So y'all do me that favor, subscribe to this channel. Share this video anywhere and everywhere you can. That would be greatly appreciated. Sign up. We have memberships to the channel. You get all kind of different little perks and whatnot. And I would be eternally grateful if you guys could do that. It would help me out a lot because we need to spread the message because the corporate news, they're failing right now, folks. They're absolutely failing. They have been failing for years. So it's hard to trust where to get your news from. So what you need to do is find somebody that does not have an agenda to lie to you about what's going on in the world, right? We just want to know what's happening. That's it. We just want to know what's going on. We want all of the facts. We don't want some curated narrative given to us by somebody from their ivory tower, right? I'm just a regular guy in a room and a camera, right, with a microphone, and that's what I do. I go and research the news, figure out if they're lying to us, and then I report that here. So y'all do me that favor, subscribe, join the channel, blah, 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 blah. You get it. But without any further ado, let's dive into it, folks.
I've been in America for nearly 4 weeks on this trip, and it seems to me only 3 people have been in the news that entire time. Donald Trump, Elon Musk, and Bill Maher. So my first question is, do you like being the story rather than talking about the stories?
You know, it comes with the territory. I never try to do that. You know, it's a little more going on in the week, but I've been through it enough that, you know, it's like, it's actually flattering that people really think that I have somehow have this importance, which I plainly don't. It's ridiculous. You know, I mean, I was offered a chance to actually sit down for an extended period of time in a private setting with the one person who has dominated all of our lives, whether you like him or not, for the last 10 years. That's just not deniable. I took it. I can't imagine why anybody wouldn't take it. Just can I see the Trumpadopoulos up close? I'm going to get to see it, and then you know the only thing that bugs me about it is they don't give me proper credit for it. And then I went back to my day job, tearing him a new asshole, and never stopped before the dinner, never stopped after the dinner, and during, because I said lots of things to him that you would think liberals would love that a guy said right to his face. You didn't win the election, and birtherism was vile, and you know what? You know, I said to him, you're scaring people. Why do you want to scare people so much? So like, I haven't changed at all, and the fact that it made so many people hysterical, not most people, by the way. I mean, I've certainly heard from zillions, and yeah, it's mostly very positive, but yeah, there are some people, sometimes surprising people.
Okay, so for any of you that haven't kept up to date with all of that, yeah, Bill Maher went to have a dinner with Donald Trump, and he got roasted by the left for doing so, which is one of the most ridiculous things in the world, right? Like, this is the problem with the left these days. There is this section of leftists that we call leftists. That's the far left. They are in a cult, folks. And then they point fingers and blame everybody else for being in a cult if they don't agree with everything that the far left agrees with. These people march in lockstep with each other on everything that seems to be just lunacy. They're like lunatics. They're just crazy, sometimes psychotic. Some people would describe them as. And, if you don't march in lockstep with every single thing they say, which is divorced from reality, most of their beliefs are just crazy, and most people don't align with that. And so they go after them. This is a very small, it's a tyranny of the minority, if you will, right? It's a very small group with a very loud voice, because these are the people that are yelling and screaming and gnashing their teeth about everything Donald Trump, right? Everybody that voted for Donald Trump, half the country essentially is in a cult, right? They're all the Trump cultists, if you will. That's how they view everything. And once again, right, like Bill Maher going to have dinner, oh, he's a traitor now. He's absolutely a traitor. You cannot do that. You can't platform the guy. Right? This is out of alignment with what most Americans think. Most Americans, right, we just want to go about our daily lives and live our lives. Well, unfortunately, that kind of mentality, right, you'll always be on the losing end of every situation. But the mentality to shun everybody from society that disagrees even just a little bit with how you feel, right? This guy is an advocate for the left. He has been one of the louder voices of leftism, if you will, for Democrats. And, just because he doesn't agree with the woke nonsense, he's far right, according to them. Now he's a traitor because he went and sat down and had dinner with Donald Trump for some reason. And that's what this whole uproar has been about. Oh, David Larry, I believe his name is. Well, we're going to get into that. But he wrote this long op-ed in the New York Times saying, my dinner with Hitler, talking about Bill Maher. And it's ridiculous. These people actually believe that Donald Trump is the reincarnation of Hitler, if you will, which is one of the most absurd things to say. It's so divorced from reality that most people don't even recognize it. They see statements like that and they're like, this guy's insane. And hey, I'm right there with them. You have every right to believe that somebody that compares Donald Trump to Hitler is absolutely insane, because that's an insane statement, but they don't see it that way for some reason. They've got like these woke colored glasses that they wear all the time, and they think that that's reality when it's absolutely not. But let's keep going.
Larry David. Because you're friends, aren't you? Were you friends? Are you friends?
Yes, of course. I mean, this wasn't, my favorite moment of our friendship, but, look, I don't want to get in too much into that, but I think the minute you play the Hitler card,
that's what I think.
You've lost the argument.
Yes.
And also, I must say, come on, man. Hitler, Nazis, nobody has been harder about and more prescient, I must say, about Donald Trump than me. I don't need to be lectured on who Donald Trump is. Just the fact that I met him in person didn't change that. And the fact that I reported honestly is not a sin either. But, to use the Hitler thing, first of all, I just think it's kind of insulting to 6 million dead Jews, who, like, that should kind of be in its own place in history. And, I know people can say, well, we're just comparing it in this way. Well, it's an argument you kind of lost just to start it. It's just, look, maybe it's not completely logically fair, but Hitler has really kind of got to stay in his own place. He is the goat of evil, and we're just going to have to, I think, leave it like that. So, did I think that was appropriate? No, but people have the right to.
Did you know he was going to do it?
Of course not. And people.
So how did you find out?
Somebody, my publicist said, this is going on today, and you should know it. And I was like, oh, okay.
Have you had any contact with him since?
No. And that's okay. Look, my whole reason to go to the White House, I said it right at the beginning of the speech I made about it, was, talking to Kid Rock right here, and we were just like, there's got to be a better way than just hurling insults from 3,000 miles away. I mean, maybe, nothing will come of this, but what I know nothing will come from is pretending to ignore the person who has all the power. Democrats have no power. So to think that your method of running out of the room screaming, I'm not talking to you, maybe my thing has a 1% chance of succeeding. Yours definitely has 0.
Not 0. And the final thing I'd say about the Larry David thing is I read it and I was just like you, the moment I saw Hitler, Nazi, okay, I get it. It's that very tired old trope. In fact, on your show once with Jim Jeffries, he told me to fuck off on your show when I said Trump is not Hitler. He hasn't been responsible for the death of 12 million people, including 6 million Jews in the Holocaust. And ever since then, I've just thought every time I see it, this is a ridiculous analogy. But the thing about the point people made on social media about Larry David was that he's been conspicuous by his silence since October the 7th, for example, not said a word. You've been conspicuous by the support you've given Jewish people on your show.
And the state of Israel.
Yeah.
And also tearing a new asshole to the, what do they call them? I used to call them that. Useful idiots who take up the cause of some of the most illiberal people in the world, and I'm talking about Hamas.
Now, to address something Bill Maher said right at the beginning of that, he's talking about, like, he's reported honestly. Well, no, I'm sorry. This is a problem that a lot of people on the right and centrists, well, pretty much everybody, has a problem with Bill Maher. It's because he doesn't report honestly. He thinks he's reporting honestly because he takes the corporate press narrative, the mainstream news. He takes their narrative and just goes with that. Doesn't take the time to investigate. Did they tell me the entire truth? And this is a problem with media these days. You have right-wing news and left-wing news. You have corporate news, essentially, which is predominantly left-wing. Right? You got Fox, who's corporate press as well, but they're more right-wing, and they lie as well. All media lies, right? You can't get away from that because sometimes we just don't get all the facts initially. And, lying by omission is still lying, but the corporate news, for the most part, they lie by omission. And they don't report a lot of the facts that would change people's opinions on a lot of different news articles, a lot of different actions by people like Donald Trump, right? Like the good people on both sides, the very fine people hoax or whatever, right? His full quote was condemning the neo-Nazis and blah, 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 blah. But they just ran with, he said neo-Nazis were very fine people. Well, that's a hoax, like the bloodbath hoax. Everybody knows that Donald Trump was talking about the auto industry being a bloodbath, but that didn't stop the corporate press, the news, Democrats from saying Donald Trump's calling for a bloodbath, like as to say that there's going to be violence or whatever. And this is the disingenuity of, the corporate news, Democrats, Republicans alike, everybody, they love to leave out facts that don't suit the narrative, if you will. And this is a problem. This is a problem with people like Bill Maher. All right, but to get into exactly why these people don't want you talking to Donald Trump, don't want you talking to anybody, don't platform these people because they're scared of the truth. They're scared of having their worldview shattered and just crumble right in front of their face, right? Because when you show people the clip, the full context of the very fine people hoax that Donald Trump said, he condemns the neo-Nazis and those people totally. But there was good people on both sides. That shatters that whole narrative that Donald Trump is siding with neo-Nazis over here. Completely shatters that. And when you tell people, look, he was talking about the auto industry, just listen to the rest of that quote, that shatters the whole violence narrative that they were trying to put out. And this is a problem. When people come to realize that they've been lied to, essentially, they were led down a path of destruction through manipulative means of omitting facts from the equation of whatever news story they were reporting on, they lose trust in the media, and the media has cratered, right? The trust in media has cratered. CNN, they're attempting to pull themselves out of a rut right now, but it's not working because they still have hardcore leftists as their main pundits on most of their shows, and they have Scott Jennings. That's it. That's the only person from the right to give a voice to half of the United States. They're not doing a very good job because they try to shun him off into a box. Oh, this is just one voice. You don't need to listen to him. All they need to do fair reporting, honest reporting, and that's it. Just give all the facts. Don't leave out facts that could change people's minds, that totally reorientate the context of what's going on. And that's what the corporate press does. That's what the corporate news does. People like Larry David, I think I may have said it backwards earlier, I'm not sure. I think I said David Larry, but I never put a whole hell of a lot of trust in people with two first names as a first and last name. That's just a moniker I go by, whatever it may be, But that's the main problem with corporate news these days, and that's the narrative that I'm trying to shatter, because we go over the news, we read over everything, and I point out all the manipulative statements, everything over the news. I research the news articles so I can make sure and go find the context, the full context to the story, and give that into the news article to bring at least some sort of balance, right? I'm a biased guy. Anybody that tells you, oh, we're unbiased, is lying to you. They're trying to feed you a narrative that trust them and don't trust anybody else. Well, you can if they tell you the truth, but it's finding if they told you the truth or not is the hard part. It's the really hard part. So, but you got to look at it like I said earlier. You got to find people that don't have an agenda to bring. They don't have any dog in the fight, if you will. Somebody that's just out there that just wants to know what the truth in the world is, and they're reporting on what they find. Those people you can generally trust. And there's a lot of them out there, y'all. There's a lot of people like that. They're small time, like YouTubers, and whatever it may be, whatever platform. There's a lot of them out there. You just got to get out there and go find them, y'all. But let's keep going.
It's a case-by-case basis, but basically, there are one of the problems with the far left is that their ideas of purity are so unrealistic, if nothing else, in a country where Trump did win 2 elections.
Yes.
I mean, you just can't write off. I know I saw it after the election. There was a lot of people who, some I know and some are friends, but their whole attitude was, we're a bad country. That's what it is. We have nothing to be sorry about with the way we ran our election, or it's just, we thought the country was full of good people, and they're actually full of really shitty, horrible people. Deplorables, that whole thing, calling them and thinking of them as deplorable. And I just don't think of a Trump voter as necessarily deplorable. He could be, absolutely. And so could someone who voted for Kamala Harris be deplorable in their own way. Now, it's also not equivalent. I make no fuzz on it all the time. I'm very clear about it. I think the right is more dangerous. I think what's going on in this country is a shit show. I mean, shout out to my writers, because we have been as hard on Trump as we ever have. The stuff we do, I mean, if you think I'm the guy to avoid because I'm not going to be hard on Trump now, you're missing actually still, excuse my immodesty, the sharpest, hardest, funniest taking down of MAGA Nation and the right. And the thing is, I'll also do it on the left but they're not in power now, so they're not getting as much from me as they shouldn't.
Did you hear from Trump after your monologue, or after the dinner?
I'm not going to comment on any of that. I mean,
I'll take that as a yes.
I mean, we're not buddies.
He brings up a good point right there, because a lot of the far left, and there's some on the far right too, they'll equivocate, policy disagreements with villainy. Right? Like, just because somebody doesn't agree with you doesn't mean they're a bad person. Right? Like, that's why Hillary Clinton lost. Right? That whole side just loses every time when you say half of the country is a basket of deplorables. Yeah, that's not a very good look. Especially when you're trying to get people in the middle, independent voters, to vote for you. That is not a very good look at all. When you're trying to shun people for their views, that is not a very good look. That is also not how to change people's minds. Right? You change people's minds by bringing the facts, by overwhelming them with ideas and facts and reality, and getting them to see how you see things. And if you have enough facts on your side, if you have enough data to back that up, a lot of times they have no choice but to buy into that, to believe that. They might not change totally. And this is okay. We don't always have to agree. This is another problem with cult-like behavior, right? A lot of these people, they think because you may agree on almost everything, but disagree on abortion, all of a sudden you're no longer in their camp. Well, hang on. Y'all agree with 95% of everything. Where is the problem? And that's the difference between the far left Democrats, if you even want to call them Democrats, but the far left, pretty much everybody else. Pretty much everybody else, we can have certain policy disagreements, blah, 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 whatever, and still be okay. This is why Donald Trump has the big tent right now, right? This is why he has Democrats, Tulsi Gabbard in his cabinet, RFK Jr. in his cabinet. It's because we're more willing to accept other ideas, bring those into the fold, and it makes a stronger union when you have a lot you agree with. Sure, you may have some disagreements, blah, 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 but who cares? For the most part, we can unite and fall under this one banner, and everything's fine, right? We can work toward a common goal, regardless of how we get there, right? And, you know, a lot of people, they're going after Trump. This whole Hitler comparison, right? It's just ridiculous how they do this. They're always comparing him to Hitler. And I get it. To a certain point, right? You see certain aspects of things that Hitler did, right? And you see that in Trump. They may be going in that certain direction, and that's scary to people. Now, you know, most people, they just blow that off like how Bill Maher and Piers Morgan were doing, like saying he's Hitler. Well, he doesn't kill Jews. Well, that's not really what they're saying, is it? This is something else we need to be open about. This is something I try to do all the time, is to try to take the other side, an argument you do not agree with, and try to argue that point, right? It refines your own positions, if you will. Right, so that's what I'm trying to do when they compare him to Hitler, and people are like, well, he hasn't killed Jews. Well, that's not exactly what they're talking about, is it? They just see certain aspects of 1930s Nazi Germany, things that the Nazi Party were doing. They see similar actions by the Trump administration, and they're like, oh, it's Hitler. We need to stop him before it goes too far, before they get to that next point. Well, hang on. Just because they're doing certain similar things doesn't mean that they're the same, and it doesn't mean that the country is going in that direction. Right? Like, for the most part, from what I can gather, is they're comparing the immigration situation to what Hitler did with the Jews. Well, these are vastly different points here, right? The Jews were Germans, essentially. They were German citizens, for crying out loud. They were being rounded up because of their ethnicity, right? This is not at all what Trump is doing. These people aren't being rounded up because of their ethnicity. Not at all, right? They're being rounded up because they're not citizens and they came into the country illegally. And that breaks our laws. We have laws to prevent this, or to, you know, at least have a mechanism that, or a lever we can pull to expedite and get rid of these people. Get them out of the country because they're not supposed to be here. We have legal means by which you come into the country and become a citizen. And when these people try to do an end run around that system, that is very, very unfair to the people that are trying to go through that system the correct way, trying to properly get vetted and go through the citizenship process to try to come into the country. It's highly unfair to those people, and they're disproportionately affected. So this is about equity, as a matter of fact. It's about, right? If you want to go there, it's about having an equitable system to where anybody and everybody can come into the country if they want to. You just have to do it through the process by which we created a long time ago. And that's something else people love to say. Oh, the immigration system is broken. It's not. I don't care what anybody tells you. The immigration system is not broken. It was designed on purpose to do a thing, to allow people to come into the country legally. Sure, does it get backed up? Sure. But that's intentional, right? That is meant because there needs to be a process. These people need to be able to get a green card and come into the country and start living in the country, to learn about our values and to melt into the pot, right? Melting pot, if you will. To be able to assimilate into our culture. Because, look at what's going on in the UK right now. You got this mass amount of migration coming in, and you get cultural clash. That leads to violence. That's something you don't want. The people, they create these enclaves of nothing but migrants, and they don't recognize the rules, right? That they've been living under a certain set of laws. They've been living in a totally different culture, so they don't live the same way that we do, and a lot of aspects of how they live clash with common law, and we can't have that, folks. That leads to violence. That leads to a lot of bad things happening. Just look at some of the news articles about some of the stuff coming out of the UK right now, and it's not good, and we don't want that for our country, folks. We don't want these roving gangs of people going around abusing people. That's about as far as I'm going to take that. But, you know, a lot of these points need to be worked out. People need to be more open-minded, for crying out loud, to listen to the other side. And don't shun people for their freaking viewpoints and call them deplorable and evil. Oh, they're just villains because they believe a different set of values than you do. It's nonsense, folks. That's a recipe for disaster. Last clip.
That CNN audience used to be, and hopefully will be again. I think they're making good strides, I hope, and I think in getting back to the middle. That used to be where the great middle of the country just got its news without, you know, opinion. It wasn't too slighted either way. There was Fox, there was MSNBC, but then if you wanted down the middle, you know, CNN.
Well, Ted Turner always said to me when I worked there, he said, never chase the ratings. He said, the ratings will come to you if you're seen to be the impartial one. And I thought there was a lot of merit in that. And I think that the more partisan CNN has been perceived to be, with some good reasons, with some of the hosts they've had, I think that the more they've lost that reputation, the more difficult it's been for them.
And I must say this about them in that battle, a lot of that they could not help because of who Trump is. How do you stay impartial when he is telling a giant lie? Then you have to say the president just lied, and now you've lost.
But I think
35%.
Well, I'll tell you, I think they're doing it well now. This guy Scott Jennings, who's sort of broken out at CNN, who's the kind of
Lonely Scott.
Lonely Scott. So he's the sort of lone Republican voice all the time on their panels, but he takes on like 3 or 4 of them, and he gives it full barrels. Often tries to defend the indefensible, but does it very eloquently. And it was interesting what he said about what happened with the Larry David thing, not to labour that point, but just on a general point. He said he thought it was an attempt to stop other people on the left doing the same, that it was actually a sort of passive active intimidation.
Well, my question is, okay, where does it end? So a comedian, he's not allowed to talk to Trump. Does that include now senators,
yes.
governors? Because I'm just a comedian.
Yes,
you know,
it's ridiculous.
I don't really, but that's where I want to have what I want to have answered is how far does this go of who it can't talk to Trump? Because again, as I said last week on my show, he's there for almost another 4 years. Yeah. That's a long time to hold your breath. That's a long time to hide behind your binders when you're in the Oval Office. You know, I mean, we can see you. And, you know, I just don't think that method is viable. You know, it's one thing not to talk to a foreign leader, but this is the American president.
It's ridiculous.
I know we don't like him and what he's doing. It is a horrible shit show. It's never been worse. I say it every week. I do a whole show of jokes about it. But it is the American president. It would be different if, for example, we have the hotline to the Kremlin, right? We put that in the Kennedy era because we thought, you know what, as bad as the tension gets with Moscow, isn't it better just to have an open line? And that's a foreign country, and we still didn't yank it out of the wall. It would be easy when just yank it out of the wall, let's not talk. But we didn't even do it with Moscow, but they want to do it with the American president? And I know people are saying, he's not my president. Yeah, both sides say that when they lose it. He's not my president. Well, you know what? I'm sorry, precious. but we don't get our own personal president in America. We have elections, and one guy wins, and he legit, I'm sorry, won twice. And by the way, the time he didn't win, I said to his face, you didn't win.
Yeah.
You'd think a liberal would love that somebody did that to the president. You'd think that would be like nothing for that? Nothing?
That's because, Bill, they don't care. They don't care at all. They see you having dinner with Trump and they say, oh, well, he's on Trump's side now. He's Hitler incarnate, for crying out loud. But he's kind of right and kind of wrong about what CNN did, right? CNN, like Trump, changed their world, for crying out loud, completely, right? They were kind of going down that path. But when Trump came in, and Trump, sure, like people, that's something else they don't get is people like me, right? Like I voted for Trump, sure, whatever. Trump lies. We agree. Trump has lied several times. No problem with saying that. No problem at all saying that. He embellishes a lot more than he should. The problem that CNN had is they just grabbed that and harped on that continuously over and over and over and over again. And we're just like, yes, we already know he lied. Click. That's all they're talking about is, oh, Trump lied and he lied and he lied and he lied. And that's it. They don't actually give us the news. And then they go and then they lie about something Trump said. They'll take short clips and say, oh, Trump said this, and then leave out the rest of the context of the conversation. So it totally changes the narrative. And that's what CNN turned into. Instead of the most trusted name in news, they turned into the narrative bringers. Once again, that's a problem. When we later find that, hang on, they just admonished Trump for lying, and then 2 seconds after that, lied about something Trump said that was truthful. That's a problem, folks. That is a problem, and they did it for ratings. That's a even bigger problem, because now that turns you into a grifter, because now you're lying for profit. And it's like their pundits picked up on the Trump bashing. They correlated that with their ratings going up, so they just went in on that. And that turned into something very, very nasty as far as, news in this country. That turned the entire corporate media into a bunch of grifters. That's how most people see the corporate news these days, is they're just lying for profit. They're just lying to whoever dislikes Donald Trump, right? Because the narrative can't be, it's always Republicans are evil and Democrats are good, right? Regardless. And once you get down into that line of thinking, yeah, we don't believe you even when you do tell the truth. We have to go and fact check whatever you said. And then if you leave anything out, that only amplifies, oh, they're just trying to push a narrative. Even if it was some inconspicuous part of the story, right? Something that kind of didn't really matter. Oh, well, you left out some facts. Well, now you're lying by omission, and we don't like that. It's a big problem, folks. We need all new people in media. We need some sort of unbiased training, for crying out loud. Like I was talking about in a video I made, I think yesterday. We need some sort of program where they just give out the facts and that's it. They just tell you what happened. No qualifiers, no BS, just facts. And that's it. And then if you want to take pundits and give, partisan politics after that, go ahead. Do what you got to do. We understand that people are biased, right? We understand people choose a side based upon reality, right? Whatever their reality is, based upon how they feel. Right? And it all comes down to emotions, but you can't make emotions as your main argument. You need logic, you need facts on your side to make a good argument and make that stick, for goodness sakes. But these people some of them don't seem to get it in the corporate press. They just think that, oh, well, grifting has worked for the past 10 years because of Donald Trump. Trump bashing always works. So let's just do that even when it's unwarranted, for crying out loud. Like, they never, ever speak anything good about Donald Trump, good things that he does, right? Like they turned immigration into this rounding up of Jews and throwing them in concentration camps, when that's really not what it is. Like with this whole Kilmar Abrego Garcia nonsense. This guy was a criminal. He was slated for deportation, and he was deported. That should have been a non-story. But the corporate news and Democrats turned this into a hostage situation, for crying out loud, where he was just rounded up in the middle of the night, disappeared off to El Salvador to sit in a prison. They don't tell you that he was adjudicated by 2 judges, a federal judge, an immigration judge, and then an appellate judge also adjudicated him as an MS-13 gang member, that there was sufficient evidence to believe that he was a threat to the country, that he should be deported. They don't tell you those things. They don't tell you that he was slated for deportation. Oh, they just go with, he was mistakenly deported. And then when it comes to light that the person that admitted the administrative error actually lied under oath to a judge and got fired for doing so, they leave that part of the story out and then just say, oh, well, this is a Maryland father mistakenly deported to El Salvador, when that's not the truth. It's not. It's absolutely not. He was a criminal alien that was slated for deportation and got deported to El Salvador. It's bonkers what the corporate press does with news these days. It's absolute bonkers. Right? And they're doing it over and over and over and over again. As a matter of fact, my next video is another case that they're trying to turn into this big story when it's absolutely just a standard deportation. They've put out this narrative that all these criminal aliens getting deported are due a hearing in court to decide if they're American citizens or not, or if they should or shouldn't be deported. That's not how the law works, folks. That is absolutely not how the law works. Just because you come into the country illegally does not mean that you have to go through a months-long process in the court system to leave the country. That's absolutely not the truth. There is this thing called expedited removal, where if you are not a citizen of this country and do not have a valid asylum hearing, asylum case, you get deported. Post haste. That's it. No judge, no hearing, none of that. And these people have made this narrative that everybody gets their day in court, when that's just not how the law works. And like I said, that is trashing the reputation of the corporate press currently. It's just obliterating their reputation to be fact bringers, to be truth tellers. They just can't seem to align themselves with reality at this point. But I think I've rambled on for long enough on this one, y'all. I want y'all to let me know what y'all think about all this down in the comment section, because I would love to hear from you guys. Absolutely. Y'all let me know what y'all think about all this. And y'all try to have a good day. Don't forget to smash that like button. Subscribe if you're new around here. And y'all stay legitical. Peace.